Hey, it's Jeff here, and I just got done recording my podcast episode with Matt Inglot. And I wanted to let you know that the podcast episode is going to be a good one. When I say a good one, I really mean that it's going to be a great story for you to follow. It basically showcases how Matt started out as a web designer in college and thought that he knew everything. And in knowing everything, he ended up getting himself into some pretty serious debt. He ended up taking out a loan, and all kinds of things happened the wrong way with his business. He basically built for growth that didn't end up happening. So he learned a lot of lessons along the way, and Matt shares a lot of wisdom about how you can not make the same mistakes he did. He talks about how you can run a better business, how you can be selective with the clients you work in, and the compound effect of choosing a niche, specifically working on a niche in your business. So if you've ever thought about going out on your own and you wanted to hear a cautionary tale, yet a ultimately successful one about how somebody can start out with one vision of their business and turn it into a different one, then this is going to be a great story. It's really something that takes us from the ups, the downs, and the consistency that needs to happen in a business. And so I really enjoyed this chat with Matt. It's like basically he was reading my story when he said his. And I think this story is something that happens to a lot of us when we try to go into business for ourselves. We think just because we're good at one skill that we are good at running a business. And that's not always the case. And so if you've ever thought about doing any of these things, I think you should listen up to what Matt has to say. And I really enjoyed this interview. I also was interviewed on Matt's podcast as well. And we're going to link to that on our little notes down here or in the show notes in our podcast on jeffalytics.com. And you can check that out and you can see my story because Matt asked some really, I would say, hard-hitting questions about my process of turning into a freelancer and then going from freelancer to agency owner. And then what happened after I decided to go back to being a freelancer / online course entrepreneur. And so if you want to hear Matt's story, definitely check out the podcast and be sure to look at the notes on jeffalytics.com. You can get a link to the podcast episode where I was on the Freelance Transformation podcast with Matt. So it was really fun getting to know Matt over these last few months as we were on each other's podcasts and as we got to really understand each other's position in business. Turns out we have a lot in common, and I look forward to continuing to keep that relationship alive with Matt. All right, so thanks. Make sure you listen to the podcast because it's going to be a really good one. Thank you.